All right, great. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to make this introduction pretty brief. As you all know, this is the Women's Congress Briefing Series, where we like to delve deeply into this document that was created in the first gathering in the lab in 2012. And this is the second call of a new focus on women-led direct action and the different women who are leading this call to act. And last month we had a great discussion with Penny Opalplant from Idle No More to set off that aspect of the series. And this month it's such a pleasure to have the women of the NorCal group, the Northern California hub of the Women's Congress, present the things that they've been up to since the beginning of this Congress, as well as the many resources they've developed over this period of time to help individuals and communities better understand the Declaration, get to the root of it, bring it into their communities. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to them. If you could please just *6 your line, press *6 to mute your line. And then when we reach the discussion portion, if you'd like to speak, you can just push *6 again to unmute your line. All right, thank you so much. And Molly, I'll pass it off to you.
Okay. This is Molly Brown. I live in Mount Shasta, Northern California, and I became part of the what we call the NorCal group began when a number of us took the train from the Bay Area to Moab. Actually, we couldn't go to Moab. We had to take a bus part of the way. But anyway, we took the train, and we had an overnight train, and we went through the Sierra Nevadas. It was an amazing trip, and we just bonded. And then when we got to the conference, we met some more people that became part of our group, namely Marley Arthur, especially want to mention. So when we got back, we all felt like we wanted to do something more. We didn't want to just kind of say, well, that was a great conference and let the whole thing die. And Molly Arthur spearheaded the idea that we have a retreat and we invite a whole lot of women from the Bay Area and beyond to come and learn about the Declaration. But we wanted it to be a working retreat. We didn't want to be talking at them. We wanted to engage more women in the Declaration, in the ideas, and in and carrying the work forth. So we wanted to clarify the concepts, and as a living document, we saw that there might be need for expansion or clarification of the document itself. We wanted to garner the wisdom of the women that came to the retreat. And so we created a retreat that Carol is going to describe in a few minutes that was very dynamic, shall we say, very much engaging and using the body as well as our minds. And Carol McClellan and I actually volunteered to plan it and facilitate it. We'd never worked together. We met on the train, but that was the beginning of our relationship, and it was really exciting to work with somebody new in that kind of a way. And we found that we are very compatible, and it worked very well. And we set it up that everybody who came would volunteer to help for meals or volunteer to help in some way. And Mary Beth Brangnan, who is part of our group, ended up kind of organizing the meals and fabulous food, incidentally. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol, who will tell you what actually happened at the retreat.
Great. Thanks, Molly. So in the retreat, I'm just going to walk through the various sections, and I'll tell you, kind of when the days started, so you know what was going on. There is a document that describes after the event, we actually recorded what actually happened. In any retreat you do, there's your plan, and then there's what actually happened. So that's what we've posted. because we made adjustments. It was a little fluid during the day, the weekend, where we made decisions on the fly based on what was going on. And so that's what's recorded on the document that you have access to in the briefing document. So the first thing we did was to review the document together. We read it out loud, and for each section we would take some time to give people a chance to write down any concepts that they thought they wanted to learn more about, anything that they felt was missing, and any questions they had. So it was a time to really digest in a paced way. We weren't rushing through it, but we kept moving. And we gave people sticky notes. So by the end, we had a very big pile of sticky notes that indicated their interest in welcome.
Hi, it's Rachel.
Oh, hi, Rachel.
Hi, I finally made it.
Yeah, so we're live.
Great.
So then we closed for the evening. We had a closing. And then the next morning we started with Connecting with Nature and a presentation about rights of nature with Robin, who will be speaking after me. And that was just to get us grounded and get us connected. We were in a lovely location. It was a retreat center in Inverness, which is over on the coast. And so we were surrounded by nature and a very lovely location where we were the only ones there, so it was a really lovely space, but we also wanted to be connected not only with each other but also with Mother Earth to go through the rest of the day. And then we started taking concepts from the first night. We had, I remember, feverishly categorizing all the sticky notes to see what the themes were. And then each small group, 2 to 3 people, chose a theme, and then their task was to come up with an interactive way, a skit, a song, a poem, or whatever, to communicate that concept or demonstrate it in some way. And watching those was fabulous. It was very creative, very engaging. People got a lot of insights through that particular exercise. And it was, it got us out of our heads, and we were laughing and really bonding and learning a lot about the key concepts that are involved in the declaration. Then we discussed what was missing in small groups. So we broke up into smaller groups, 3, 4 people, and talked about what was missing and what wasn't working in the document for us. And there were different groups that formed around different kind of key issues to sort of go a little further into that. And then toward the end of the day, we had a group dialogue where we just shared everything that had come up in each of our groups and began to see some themes. And then we decided we needed some way to prioritize. So the homework that night was to take a step away from all the festivities and to write down the 3 most important concepts to us personally and the 3 actions that we could see coming out of this retreat. And then the rest of that night was sort of spontaneous. People were singing and talking and sharing information, and it was a nice, again, a different channel to be doing all of those things, but it did build a sense of community for the group. And that was the end of Saturday. And then on Sunday, we started by sharing our 3 items of what was most important and the 3 actions. And then we ended up breaking into 2 groups. Some went to think about the actions, and we got a big list of items on a flipboard. And then the other group started crafting a 1-page essential concept, which Robin will be sharing very shortly. And then that was the end of our retreat, so we had a closing, and we had someone, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering her name at the moment, who had a, pardon?
Camila Martinez.
Yes, and she led us in a ritual that was lovely and very connected with earth traditions, and it was just a really nice way to complete the process. And then a number of us went out for lunch, and that was the end of the retreat. So, Robin, why don't you talk about the documents that came out of the next phase of that retreat?
Okay, I'm happy to do so, but first I want to acknowledge, is Camilla on the line with us? Rachel, is she with you?
I came in to try again the call from my house, but Mary Beth and Camilla were trying again from the Eon office, so they may be listening in with it muted.
Okay, great. Well, anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge because it was a very, very powerful ceremony and earth honoring time with her. So the coming out of the event, which I'll just also add, it was very powerful for me, having been at Moab with a larger connection of women, to now be in my own community with a very intimate group. And it was very special. And for those of you, including myself, who are hoping to go to Minneapolis, it's going to be really special to be back in the larger group and in the opportunity to encourage smaller groups, communities to get together as we've done is a big piece of the message from today. And Carol made a reference to the fact that we looked at essentially what we call essential concepts. The document that came out of Moab and that we worked on to add more of our own personal flavor to a very powerful document, and it's a rather long document. And one of the things that was important for us is to look at how to kind of flush it down into a 1 or 2 page document that we can use as an easy reference, especially when we're talking more casually with people about what the work is. And so one of the documents that you have is, we refer to it as Essential Concepts. It begins with the stand that we stand witness for future generations and are making a declaration for the rights of future generations and responsibilities of present generations. And then it highlights some of the principles and the intentions toward a declaration for future generations, and highlights some of the rights that come with responsibilities, and an action statement. And it includes a commitment, and we use it to ask people to commit to the declaration of honoring and upholding all relationships in the earth community. So anyways, I find it to be a powerful document, and I would encourage you to take some time and look at it, and invite you to use it as you talk to people about what our work in the Women's Congress is all about. The second thing we felt was needed was a glossary of terms. I mean, we talk about anthropocentric and anthropologic and the commons in the earth community, and interdependence and intergenerational, and our group, especially Molly and others who were part of it, introduced the concept to many of us of mother-baby, and we also, things such as restorative justice. All of these are terms that some of us use and have a handle on, but others are going, huh? And so we created, you'll find a glossary of terms that allows you to get a better understanding of what we're meaning, and it references links to Wikipedia and other definitions, so that you've got a reference to a broader understanding of some of the terms that we use, even the whole notion of what do we mean by rights for future generations, and what do we mean by rights of nature, rights of Mother Earth. So, and then another document, this is a 1-page document that we call our threads. And by threads, for integration, we simply mean, when we are referring to rights for future generations, what are the other themes that we're overlapping with? I mean, how it's the precautionary principle, and rights of nature, rights of Mother Earth, and ecological economics. social justice, women's rights, and so it's just a one page to reinforce the idea that when we're talking about rights of future generations, the threads tie into every aspect of our life, whether it's the practical, mundane, economics, or our more spiritual consciousness awakening, mother-baby birthing, and those things. So it's one page. And then another document that Rachel created, and Rachel, if you want to take a moment and talk a little bit about our word cloud. It's a beautiful one-page pictorialization of the various words that we refer to in this work. So, Rachel, you want to say a few words about that?
Well, basically, I was taking a lot of notes during that retreat, and I'm just someone who's more of a visual learner and learn by doing, and sometimes I get lost in all the, when it's just solid, words, either hearing it or even reading it. Sometimes it's, I need a visual to get me grounded in the information. And when I got home from the retreat, I typed all of my notes from the weekend, and it was all kinds of random stuff too. It was from the small group discussions, and it was, words to songs we had written there, and just all kinds of stuff. And I just typed it all in to my computer, and then I put all those words in the I think it was the Wordle program. There's a lot of these word cloud programs. I just put them all in there and to see what would come out of it. And I was so excited to see that. I sent it out to all of you. And then when we got together again, like a month later or something, we talked about a few more concepts that it would be nice if they, just stuck out more, because the words are bigger in the word cloud if they've been used multiple times. And so then I added some of our favorite concepts in there a few more times to make sure they would come out larger. And then, we were all happier with the version that came up. So we just felt it was an important thing to have some kind of visual to send out. There's a lot of people like me out there, basically, that need that kind of thing. And, to have some kind of art or graphic or something to go with this information as we're putting it out to people, just seemed like an important thing. I was happy that it came out like that. So, yeah. Anybody else want to say anything about that?
Well, I thought it was, it is a wonderful feeling of the importance of what we're working on and what we're doing. This is Molly Arthur. Mm-hmm. And so I really appreciated the concept, because I'm a word person and not a visual as much. So I was happy to hear that, the different ways that we should be communicating these ideas.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
So I think that I'm the next person on the agenda. Is that what...
You're up next, Molly.
Okay, here we go.
To talk about the convening conversations.
Thank you.
Go for it.
Okay. So this is Molly Arthur, and I was wanting to add a little something about the retreat, because this morning I just pulled out notes from the retreat and parts of our conversations that we had, and the excitement of what we were doing came back to me, and the ideas that we brought forth and the interaction that we had, and and the feeling that what we were talking about was so important for the world and so significant, and that we were, getting together to figure out, how we can move forward in a social movement for women and the future generations. Came back to me, and of course, we felt that we came up with ideas that were so important that need to be included, that are basic and strong principles. And then the idea that we wanted to, therefore, because the conversations and the discussions were so rich, and we were within a format that was so very clear and held by Molly and Carol, that we wanted to enable more voices to be heard within this format. So that's where we came up with the convening conversations idea. Let us go out to other organizations and listen to their conversation about the rights of future generations, because we felt that we would like to hear the diversity of input, because we came up with principles that were not a part of the original declaration, like the mother baby and the oneness and the interdependence, foundational ideas on the well-being of ourselves, our future generations, and our world. And so we want to make sure we're not missing anything in this living document, which is to be expansive and growing and inviting. So the convening conversations was, all right, let's take our knowledge as facilitators and our experience and allow a 2-hour format that's clear to hear those voices. So happily, Carol and Molly Young-Brown really, and Robin, all of us, but they're facilitators of groups, so it's extraordinarily strong professional work that's gone into this format. And we came up with a 2-hour format that, and I can just kind of go through briefly the outline so that you can see the clarity of what we were trying to enable, and the holding and the listening that's so very important for us in including other organizations and other people and other diverse experiences and background. So we came up with a 2-hour format and suggested that there were 2 people who would facilitate this, because we need the interaction of writing as well as talking. And in the beginning, we would suggest that an introduction be done. What is the legacy we are leaving to future generations? And we've talked a little bit about what might that introduction be. We would then talk about the history of the Declaration and the fact that it's a living draft, and this is why we're here, convening this conversation so we can hear what people are saying. And we base it and tell people about our retreat and how rich that was in enabling a larger framework for discussion. Then the conveners would talk about themselves, why they're personally involved and their relevant background, to talk about why they have such a commitment to the mission of the rights of future generations. Then we would suggest that we read together from the Essential Concepts page the intention of the statement of the Women's Congress. Such as Robin had mentioned, we stand witness for future generations and are making a declaration of rights of future generations and responsibilities for current generations. And then we would invite each participant, and we were anticipating, probably no more than 20 people in a group in this convening, but there's flexibility, and we set it up as a 2-hour time. So invite each participant to introduce themselves, give their name, and one right of future generations they think is important. So we haven't gone into the details of the rights. We've just gone into the intention, and what we wanted was the openness of allowing people to just come up with what they think is the appropriate right of future generations. Then we would hand out the guiding principles, because the Declaration is divided into 3 sections: principles, rights, and responsibilities. And we would invite the participants to take turns reading through the guiding principles paragraph by paragraph. And in the meantime, we're organizing a sticky note for each of the rights that had been brought up by the attendees. And then we invite, after going through the principles, we invite the people, the attendees, to go to one of the rights to have a discussion about them. So physically step into a group and say, all right, I want to talk about the mother-baby principle, or I want to talk about, a new principle that's come up, maybe diversity, et cetera. So that each, we then divide out and try to have even groups, and we see who's in which group and see that it's balanced. Then those groups go and talk for 10 minutes about the rights and responsibilities, and we give them the declaration to look through that and have a comparison of what they've had a discussion for 10 minutes, and then compare it to what actually did we have in the declaration. So first, stay open, talk about what you're thinking, and then you can refer your groups to the declaration itself. And then one person can volunteer as a spokesperson. So this is really only a 20-minute small group. Then the full group would reconvene, and we would go through each group's discussion of their new rights or the current rights and the language that they may want to suggest. And the feedback would be our right was, so let's say they decided to be under interdependence. And in the document we found that this discussion about interdependence was there, and we think that we have some different language or some different ideas that should be added to this particular right. And then we invited the small groups to talk about our responsibility was. And in this document we found. So that you're talking about the new rights, the current language, you're giving input on what your discussion was as a small group focused, and the full group then feels the sharing of this wisdom and knowledge together. And then we would invite people to talk about what actions they may want to take because of this, foundational idea about the principles, the rights, and the responsibilities. And we would invite a discussion about, well, what can you do now in the real world? So we would be the facilitators, and we would be the listeners to this conversation, and we would be the recorders as well in feedback to the Central Committee on what we've heard, what has been suggested. And then each group, in each convening conversation, the group would come up with actions that maybe they would act on together. We would particularly invite them to convene another conversation within their organization, maybe a larger one, and convene a more in-depth conversation about actions and input, and officially endorse the declaration. So that individually we have the opportunity for people to endorse the declaration, but as an organization to endorse the declaration as well. So the idea had been when we go to invite people to have this conversation, we're actually going to pre-formed groups, to those groups who are already working together and therefore have manpower and people who will show up. And we will, invite individuals as well as that particular organization to endorse the declaration. And then our invitation in closing is, to feel united, to feel connected, and to understand that we are committed to the principles that we have and the rights and the responsibilities that we've discussed. So anyone would like to add to my long explanation here? Molly Brown, I think
you've covered it really well, Molly. Molly Arthur. This is Molly B. and Molly A. Molly A. has been speaking, and this is Molly B. We have to do that to distinguish ourselves.
Right.
But I think you've done a really great job.
I know in having a longer opportunity rather than just 2 hours would be one evening, but let's say a group was to do a full retreat day or a half retreat day. There were suggestions on meditative moment, listening to the river and the lake, so go out into nature. And a further and more introduction of Joanna Macy's 3 dimensions and list of models to be engaged. So, acknowledging that so much of this work is really based on Joanna Macy's work. And, to bring that in, because that has been such a successful model in allowing people to understand how important their relationship is with nature and the future generations. So those were some different activities that Joanna Macy has seen are successful. And those could be included for a longer convening.
and people could use actually the retreat agenda to for ideas of what they could do on their own.
Right. Yeah, there's so much an invitation to do the retreat as we did, because it was rich and robust and beautiful. Consider within your workshop opportunities with your groups to do a longer version of our short 2-hour convening conversation. And, so what we would like to do is move forward this social movement on the ground floor, one-on-one, within groups, face-to-face, and as a transformative and way to realize that we have so much responsibility for what we may want to do now in order to safeguard the future generations. So I think we're at the point of questions at this point, Molly.
Yeah.
B.
Yes, discussions, questions, whatever.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Caitlin,
so,
you want to?
Yeah, if anyone who would like to speak can go ahead and *6 their line to unmute. I'll go ahead and begin. I do have some questions. Mm-hmm. This is Caitlin Butler, and I guess I have a couple. The first question that I'd like to put out there is, I don't know about you guys, but when I was first introduced to the concept of a living declaration in 2012, I was unfamiliar with the term being used in kind of an active way. I didn't quite know what it meant to have a document that was both seemingly static, because it had to be put into writing somehow, and yet was considered living in the sense that it could be amended and adapted to a community's needs. And I guess before I say the question, I will say that it is such an honor to listen to all of you talk together, because you can tell that the group, despite having not known each other before, it's very clear that you guys have so much respect for one another and give each other the space that each one needs to really speak about what they feel called to speak on, and it's really beautiful to listen to. So I guess my question is kind of how you guys feel that concept is best described to people who are unfamiliar with the idea. How do you describe to someone that a document can be ever-changing in a way that resonates?
Frankly, this is Molly B. That's a question that we've kind of grappled with, and because we came up with these a couple of things that we really felt were important. I mean, obviously you can always polish and you can always wordsmith a document, but some major pieces, Mother Baby being one of them, and that's going to be discussed in another briefing, is it isn't just local communities. What about when a local community comes up with something that we really feel ought to be in the main document? How does that happen? How does that decision get made? How does it get incorporated? And I think that that's something that the Congress has not yet really resolved, is that question. Just the kind of the mechanics of it, because obviously it could get to the point where you're wordsmithing every other day and you never have anything coherent that people could say, okay, this is the declaration. So it needs to be able to have some integrity, and it needs to be able to organically incorporate major new ideas. So that's what I see as a living document. And how to do that is yet, I think it's still an open question.
Thank you, Molly. That's great. My follow-up question was just if you guys had any ideas about groups that you are planning on approaching now that you have this really great outline for convening conversations. You kind of mentioned that there was thoughts of starting to bring this to different individuals. I was just curious if you guys had any kind of wish list of people you would like to approach that you're ready to share at this time.
I have some ideas. I do a fair amount of work in the birth world, and I want to convene and with some friends, birth practitioners, those people who are involved, to have this conversation. I think that would be rich. And then tonight, actually, I'm going to Generation Wake Up, where they actually are launching an initiative that is intergenerational. How marvelous is that? So the young people are inviting the elders to come and join with them and be with them. And I am very much looking forward to being a part of that. And it would be highly appropriate for me to suggest that we have a gathering with the young people to listen to their voices.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right, I'll stop.
Well, I've also thought of just ordinary, what you might call mainstream groups like Rotary or, service clubs that they're often looking for speakers to come and give a presentation at a meeting. And I haven't done it myself, but I have intention of doing that in my own community. But I've been busy with a book, so I haven't followed through with that. But I think that's still something we can, I'm just thinking of mainstream groups.
This is Robin. As a Rotarian, I have presented the concept to my Rotary group, actually on a couple of occasions, both from the perspective of rights of nature as well as our focus on rights for future generations. And as you would expect from a very mainstream group, it landed very deeply with a number of my colleagues, and then some are going, what?
What we wanted to hear were voices of color, Native American and all the different ethnicities and groups, to make sure, because we didn't really have any of those in our retreat, and we would love to be intentional and inclusive. And that was a lot of the motivation behind this, was how do we go out to groups and not tell them what to do? How do we listen to their kind of conversation? I mean, in this convening conversation concept, we don't even want to say to groups, well, this is how you should do it. We would say this is an offering that we understand may be useful, but to be flexible with the intention of maybe groups have different ways that they have conversations, that not only different language, but, a different context in which something is handled and discussed. So we didn't want to be fundamentalist about how this is done, but to be very open.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for the group? All right. I'll bring the floor back to you guys. Is there any last-minute thoughts you'd like to share?
I'm sorry, this is Ann. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Ann.
It took me too long to put in my security code. Hi, everybody. It's so great to hear your voices. And Molly Brown, I can't wait to meet you. Good luck with that book. I am really happy to be reminded again of all the great resources on your website. So we'll go back and start pulling some of those out to include. We really want a page on we will have a page on our website for people to sign the declaration and see that. And we really are incorporating that principle of interconnectedness and interdependence. I think that's just got to be grounding completely in our work.
Yeah.
As you know, this next Congress will begin to unpack some of the core economic principles that need to shift, that we need to have some new ideas. So we are in the process of trying to work with that, and anything that any of you are seeing, hearing, we'd love to hear more about what you're thinking. no debt to future generations without a corresponding assets was in the original declaration, but what else needs to be incorporated? And then I think, Molly V., you're right. We don't have a clear process yet for how to incorporate new things into the declaration without making it so cumbersome that the declaration becomes meaningless. So I think that's something over the summer we really want to think more clearly about. So any ideas any of you have on that would be really helpful. And Robin, maybe you could talk about, from a rights of nature standpoint, how you've thought about your declarations and, process there. I also had never thought about going to a Rotary Club. I love that idea. So that's a lot. You've got 12 minutes to.
No, thank you so much, Ann. And I will add that I think what we'll try to do with some of the briefing series calls leading up to the second event in November is to create some space to begin discussing some of these possible new or amended principles so that people have an opportunity to become familiar with the concepts prior to the event itself, leaving more space at the event to actually get to the nitty-gritty of how to incorporate these things. So I'm really excited about that, and I imagine that this group, as well as representatives from the Minnesota team, will be called upon to speak on some of these new ideas in the months leading up. So everyone mark their calendars for that as well.
Can I? This is Robin. Can I just real quickly answer Ann's question about the Universal Declaration for Rights of Mother Earth?
Oh,
that
absolutely.
document was created as a part of the People's Conference for Climate Change and Rights of Mother Earth in 2010, and a very formal process that had taken weeks before the conference itself. And so it's in its own way it's living, but it's not it has been essentially perceived as having been signed off by the 35,000 people that acclaimed it at the end of the conference. There was a very specific intention that is still being worked of having it be adopted by the UN. And so unless the UN says, yes, we're going to adopt it, but we want to make these changes, it's considered to be more of a fixed document. One of the things I love about the fact that our document is a living document is that we're essentially giving people the freedom to embrace the document in a way that resonates with them. So if there's language in that, there's language in the Universal Declaration for Rights of Mother Earth that I'm not, there are a couple places that if I were writing it myself, I'd write it differently. And so our living document format gives us the freedom to, as long as we are consistent with the spirit and the concepts of rights for future generations, which includes all members of our Earth community. I love the freedom of it being a living document, and so
I like that too.
Let me just add a comment. As I was listening to Molly's presentation about the convening conversations, I was reminded of the idea of having organizations endorse the document, and in doing so, begin to develop, that this organization has endorsed this document. Even as it's changing, they can still endorse it in terms of the concept of the document, even if they don't agree with every little, comma and period. And I just think that would be very, very powerful to have a list of organizations that have endorsed the document.
Right.
That's good. We do have 7 or 8 groups that are willing to be seen as listed as allies on the website. So that's a good start. I like that. And maybe putting their logos up where we have the signing of the declaration. One of the things we've really encouraged, and Emily, I think you're on the call, you can speak to that too, we're really working to go to allies events both those who've identified as allies and those we hope would become allies. So, for example, the Center for Energy and Earth Democracy, which is in Upper Midwest, led by women of color, really focused on environmental issues for low-income and people of color, the neighborhoods and cities. And so they did an all-day event with Kim Wasserman from Chicago, the Goldman Prize winner from 2013. And so half a dozen of us showed up to that. And there's another EJ climate meeting here next Thursday that we'll all go to. And so really trying to just show up, listen, hear what they're working on, and then work with them to make sure the way we're moving our work forward is in alignment to the degree possible. Because we found when we go out and, and kind of ask them to join us in our planning, they kind of look at us like, we got our own work to do.
Yes.
And so we'd like to ally with you, but we don't have extra people to come to your committee meetings. And so it's an ongoing struggle. New members that come join us, tend to be honest, middle-class white women. And they're all like, but where are the women of color? And so it's like, well, we do have conversations. We do have allies. We're working with them. But we have to honor that they do their own work. And part of what we're trying to build is a big umbrella where they can be in the space with us in November, deepen their coalition, get new energy for their organization. But we may be the ones who are planning the November Congress. SEED has been very helpful, Shalini, the ED, and Cecilia. So we are in conversation to bring in Sonia Davila from Bolivia, who will be a wonderful addition to the Congress to bring that more international perspective. Do any of you know her?
No.
Yeah.
And
she'll be wonderful.
One thing that I personally is almost a make or break for me. I absolutely hate getting on airplanes. And I'm hating it more and more, and I'm feeling more and more the carbon footprint. And so the train comes to mind, and I'm wondering if anyone in your group could look into the possibility of, recommending a train, and how would it work, and where would, which are there any trains that come to your town, and
absolutely.
Anyway, and putting that out as an option rather than just me as an individual looking into it.
Yes, we could. We'll put that on the website. The registration.
Because the train is the most environmentally friendly mode of travel right now.
And that's how we all got together initially, was on the train.
I know. I
we
remember
bonded
being
on the
in
train.
Moab, loving hearing your stories of bonding on the train.
Yeah. So,
but especially Northern Cal to Minnesota, I think is pretty easy.
Yeah. Well, Bay Area could go to Chicago, and then from there to get to Minnesota would be the question. But
yeah, we'll look it up. We'll make
okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's called Amtrak.com.
And I don't know if they were approached and said we're having this big conference and all these people are coming, can you give us a special rate, or who knows? They might be open to something like that.
Yeah, we'll work on it.
All right, well, thanks, everyone. There's about 4 minutes left, so I just want to check and see if anybody else has something they'd like to add to the conversation. All right. I think that we will just wrap it up and respect everyone's hour time. NorCal Group, thank you so very much for sharing all of this wisdom. You guys have been stellar in all of the stuff you've created. It's extremely valuable resources, and I just can't wait for the rest of 2014 to begin to bring this stuff out into communities. I think that they'll prove to be very useful documents in the upcoming months, to say nothing of the influence they'll have after the second event. So thank you all so much. And I look forward to hearing all of your voices next month when we have our third call about women-led direct action, and it will be led by Osprey Oriel Lake, who has her hands in all sorts of things. I'll leave it to the email to describe all of the stuff she's up to. So thank you all so much, and just talk to you next month.
Okay.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.